Today we're going to be ranking every single WWE World Heavyweight Champion, and we're going to categorize these WWE superstars from Hall of Fame all the way down to trash. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, ring that bell for notifications, and don't forget that we're going to be giving away another $50 Amazon gift card to somebody in the comments, and I'm going to give the instructions as to how to enter that later in the video. Well, all right, let's go ahead and get started. As you can see, we have our tiers here. We have Hall of Fame, great, good, not good, and trash. Let's go ahead and start with the first ever WWE World Heavyweight Champion, Triple H, who didn't win the championship, by the way. He was given it by Raw general manager at the time, Eric Bischoff, and Triple H would go on to have a Hall of Fame run with this thing. It was so Hall of Fame worthy that it was called the Reign of Terror, because it didn't matter whether you actually beat him or you lost. Triple H always won, because there were so many transitional champions who would beat Triple H and then immediately lose the belt right back to him. No one really had a long, viable World Heavyweight Championship run after beating Triple H, aside from Batista, which you'll get to a little bit later on in this video. But one of the worst things about this run was just how many WCW guys were just fed to Triple H, the likes of Scott Steiner, Booker T, Goldberg. Everyone lost to Triple H, even if they won. Triple H always ended up on top, so he goes into the Hall of Fame category. As frustrating as that run was to watch, it is undeniable that when you think of the big gold belt, you think of the cerebral assassin, Triple H. Next, let's go to the first man to ever defeat Triple H, and the first one of these many transitional champions. That would be the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. And I would love to put Shawn Michaels into the Hall of Fame category, into great or into good, but when your championship reign only lasts like on pay-per-view, it's not good. He would beat Triple H in a fantastic first ever Elimination Chamber match, but then would immediately lose this to him. I believe it was at Armageddon during a 3 Stages of Hell match. It was a fantastic feud that started at SummerSlam and then eventually culminated into that. But the reign of Shawn Michaels as World Heavyweight Champion, you know, as beautiful as it was to see Shawn Michaels back on top, was just not very good. So it's going to go into the not good category. And we're going to keep going with transitional champions. The next one is Lord Voldemort, aka Chris Benoit. Chris Benoit would go on to win the Royal Rumble and then go on to win the main event of WrestleMania and get all of the glamour and pyrotechnics and celebration that comes with winning your first ever World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania at Madison Square Garden at WrestleMania 20, the 20th anniversary of the biggest show in sports entertainment. And then his run after that was very lackluster. He was never treated as really the top guy. The top guys in the company would continue to be Triple H, even though Triple H was no longer the champion. So Chris Benoit's run, you know, it's not as bad as Shawn Michaels. At least he held the title and defended it a few times in pay-per-view, and would eventually lose to a member of Evolution in Randy Orton. So I'm going to put Lord Voldemort's reign as World Heavyweight Champion into the good category. But again, another transitional champion. Okay, the era of transitional champions does not end, but this one has two halves to it. Next we have Randy Orton, who would go on to become the youngest World Heavyweight Champion in WWE history at 24 years old by beating Lord Voldemort at SummerSlam 2005. That reign, his initial reign, was awful, pathetic, and transitional. I think it only lasted about 29, 30-ish days. And of course, who would he lose to? Triple H, of course. That being said, Randy Orton would go on to have a fruitful career with several other World Heavyweight Championship runs. For me, my favorite time with him as World Heavyweight Champion was when he was feuding with Christian and the likes of Mark Henry. I am going to put Randy Orton's time as World Heavyweight Champion as great. Had it only been his initial run, he would have gone down into the trash category. Like, his initial run really was unnecessary and actually kind of hindered his character because it forced him into being a babyface, but he was far better as a heel that time when he was 24 years old. But the reigns that he had later on in his career, and the feuds that he had later on in his career. By the way, he was the last ever, technically, World Heavyweight Champion before it got brought back recently in 2023. So he goes into the great category for me. Next, let's go to the Manimal Batista, to the Animal Batista. This was the first true, real World's Heavyweight Champion after Triple H. He would beat Triple H at WrestleMania 21 after winning the 2005 Royal Rumble, and he would go on to have an actual meaningful run where he didn't lose to Triple H immediately. He would vanquish Triple H in pay-per-views after WrestleMania, and then would be drafted to SmackDown and would go on to have several feuds there as well. And then he would be forced to vacate the championship after a 200+ day run. He would also go on to have several runs throughout the 2000s as well. And Batista, for me, goes into the Hall of Fame category. When I think World's Heavyweight Champion, I truly do genuinely think of Batista alongside Triple H. So he goes into the Hall of Fame category for me. All right, we're going to go a little bit out of order now. Let's go to Captain Charisma Christian. Look, he had a very short reign as World's Heavyweight Champion. His first reign was 6 days. And then he would go on to have a fantastic summer feud with Randy Orton. One of my favorite feuds of the 2010s. It's incredibly underrated. Not enough people talk about Christian versus Randy Orton. And then he would go on to have about a 1 month reign where he would eventually lose the championship back to Randy Orton at SummerSlam. But those 30 days, man, the promos he was cutting, the character that he was playing, the matches he was having. Oh, dude, I put him into the good category. Somebody with that short a reign of the World Heavyweight Championship traditionally for me would go into the not good category, but he did so much in the short amount of time that he had that title. Let's go on to Mark Henry. Oh man, I am a huge fan of Mark Henry as World's Heavyweight Champion. He absolutely reinvented and transformed himself into the curator of the Hall of Pain. That run of him first beating Randy Orton for the title and then holding this thing hostage and beating contender after contender until eventually actually losing the title to the Big Show was such a fun run. Mark Henry was a great World Heavyweight Champion. He goes into the great category for me. I really wish he'd gotten another chance with it because his one and only run as World Heavyweight Champion was magnifique. Let's talk about Daniel Bryan next. And Daniel Bryan is another one of my personal favorite World Heavyweight Champions. This does not include when he won the 2 titles at WrestleMania 30 because it wasn't the World Heavyweight Championship at that time anymore, but he did win the World Heavyweight Championship after cashing in on the Big Show after the Big Show beat Mark Henry. And then he would go on to have one of the most entertaining, slimy, weaselly runs as World Heavyweight Champion where he just kept winning somehow. And then of course it was the birth of the Yes movement, and which eventually led to the No movement, and then eventually led to many great things for Daniel Bryan like Yeselmania, but I absolutely adored this run as World's Heavyweight Champion. The ending was of course unceremonious, losing in 27 seconds to Sheamus at WrestleMania 28, but I am going to put Daniel Bryan's reign as World's Heavyweight Champion into the good category. I just mentioned him. Let's talk about Sheamus next. And Sheamus, man, he really was done dirty, wasn't he? He was basically forced to the fans as one of the new faces of the company, one of the good guys that the WWE desperately wanted you to root for. And we wanted to root for Sheamus. Trust me, we really did. But when you have him bury the hottest thing in WWE in 27 seconds at WrestleMania, people are going to turn on Sheamus. And what's a shame is he would then go on to have a fantastic 2 out of 3 falls match with Daniel Bryan at the very next pay-per-view in what was arguably match of the year, which we should have gotten at WrestleMania. But because it felt like he was being forced, he was shoot in to win the Royal Rumble and then just burying a darling that we all really loved. People turned on him very quick. And his reign as World's Heavyweight Champion for me just goes into the not good category. Let's go on to, oh dear boy, our friend Dolph Ziggler. His first run, less than like an hour. And then his second run, of course, cut short by not his fault, an injury. But my God, that cash-in. That cash-in alone is such a memorable moment that is going to go down in wrestling history. But that is not what we're ranking today. And because that's not what we're ranking today, Dolph Ziggler is our first trash World Heavyweight Champion. And it hurts me to put him into the trash category. Trust me, it really does. But just bad luck, man. Just bad luck. Sometimes it doesn't go your way. Sometimes an ill-timed super kick to the back of the head can do this to you. So he goes into the trash category, unfortunately. Let's go to Edge. Edge is synonymous with the World's Heavyweight Championship. I mean, most of all of his world titles wore the big gold belt. Although he dropped this thing like hotcakes, he was always in the picture as a threat to the World Heavyweight Championship. So to me, you know, the rated R superstar is up there with Triple H, Batista, and of course himself, Edge, as the trifecta running the top of the World Heavyweight Championship division. So to me, Edge goes into the Hall of Fame category, the rated R superstar. All right, let's move on. You know, earlier we were talking about transitional champions. Here's another one for you. How in the world is Goldberg, who was so over with the fans, so hot with the fans, how is he a transitional champion for you? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Yeah, another WCW guy that was eventually just jobbed to Triple H. Goldberg goes into the not good category. Very short reign. It boggles my mind how WWE was treating WCW talent, even as hot as Goldberg. It didn't matter who you were doing the job to Triple H. It was like some sort of like weird punishment that they were being forced to go through simply because they were a part of WCW. So unfortunately, Goldberg's run as World Heavyweight Champion goes into the not good category. And it's a shame because I feel like he could have been an awesome World Heavyweight Champion. All right, let's go to Kane. Kane is low-key a great World Heavyweight Champion. He held this thing for a shockingly long time, I think about 150 days, and he was the first ever person to win Money in the Bank and cash in on a world champion on the very same day. I don't really have like too much detail to dive into since he really only had one reign with the thing, but it was a great reign, and the way that he won it is of course iconic and legendary. As much as I don't love same-day cash-ins with Money in the Bank, there's no doubt that he set a precedent. He goes into the good category for me. Let's go to Jack Swagger, and let me just go ahead and put him in the trash category, okay? Jack Swagger had no business being a World Heavyweight Champion. He was not ready. He didn't have the charisma. Frankly, he didn't have the in-ring skills and the in-ring storytelling to make me believe that he is a viable, worthy World Heavyweight Champion. So to me, Jack Swagger's run is one of the most forgettable runs as a World Heavyweight Champion, even though he actually held this thing for a decent amount of days. But this goes into the trash category for me. Next, let's go on to King Booker. And King Booker had a pretty fun run as World Heavyweight Champion. You know, it's nothing special, but this was a weird era in WWE where the big gold belt started to feel a little bit like a secondary title. Like it was all about the WWE Championship at this time. If you weren't feuding with John Cena, it just kind of just didn't matter in WWE's eyes. And that's unfortunately what was happening to the World Heavyweight Championship at this time. That being said, I love King Booker as a World Heavyweight Champion. He goes into the good category for me. Next, let's do Rey Mysterio. And you know what? As beautiful as his win at WrestleMania 22 was, dedicating it to Eddie Guerrero, I hated Rey Mysterio as World Heavyweight Champion because they just continued to bill him as an underdog. Like, how do you just keep pushing the world champion as an underdog? I get it. The dude's tiny. That's fine. But it makes it hard for me to get in line with the fact that this man is supposed to be the champion of heavyweights. He was not treated like a top guy when he was world champion. He was always in the defensive. He was always, sure, he would win matches, but it always felt like he was not the person coming out on top at the end of feuds. It always seemed like somebody else came out on top instead of Rey Mysterio. So I'm going to put the Rey Mysterio's time as a World Heavyweight Champion into the not good category. Now let's go on to the Great Khali, and I'll do us all a favor. He goes into the trash category. The man could barely walk. The man could barely exist, okay, let alone put on a good wrestling match. The Great Khali won this by, I think, winning a Battle Royal, if I'm remembering correctly, when the world title was vacated. It's just a run that I'd rather forget, okay? The Great Khali as World Heavyweight Champion was absolute trash. All right, next we're going to do The Undertaker, but before we do, just know that if you want to win the $50 Amazon gift card, you got to do two things. One, you got to leave a like on this video. We are going to check whether or not you liked it. We're going to ask you to send us a screenshot of your pick. You also have to leave a comment about John Cena, the champion. You can't see him, but I need to be able to see your comment. So you need to leave a comment that says the words John Cena. Okay, don't just put Cena. You got to put John Cena because then that way I can filter it. And just a comment about John Cena. I don't care what you put, just so long as you use the words John Cena. And you got to like the video, okay? All right, let's go on. The Undertaker. The Undertaker, kind of a tale of two halves as well. His first couple of reigns as World Heavyweight Champion were super short and super forgettable. His final run as World Heavyweight Champion was a lot of fun. He would go on to lose it because of Shawn Michaels in the Elimination Chamber, causing Chris Jericho to get the win on The Undertaker. But that run, even though it ended unceremoniously with just like a kind of a sneaky pinfall because of Shawn Michaels attacking him. Anyways, that run was excellent. That was a great run as a World Heavyweight Champion. He goes right beside Mark Henry and Randy Orton into the great category. Next, we have Kurt Angle. And at this point, I mean, this was kind of like the birth of Perk Angle. This was Kurt Angle in his wrestling machine phase. He had a great run as a World Heavyweight Champion, winning it in a battle royal. He had some fantastic matches. Immediately off the top of the dome, I'm thinking Undertaker versus Kurt Angle at No Way Out, which should have been at WrestleMania 22, and unfortunately it wasn't. That match was a bona fide 5-star classic that would be talked about in the same light as Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker had it happened at WrestleMania. Kurt Angle as a World Heavyweight Champion for me goes into the great category. Next, Jeff Hardy. And Jeff Hardy, man, they just like didn't trust him as World's Heavyweight Champion for some reason. It was start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. He would win the championship, get cashed in on. He would win the championship, lose it the next month. Look, I love Jeff Hardy. I really do. But he was not a very good World Heavyweight Champion. His feud with CM Punk, though, was a tremendous amount of fun and great storytelling. But if we're just literally looking at him as a World Heavyweight Champion, he goes into the not good category. Next, we've got the Big Show, and the Big Show's first run was less than like 5 minutes because Daniel Bryan cashed in on him. But then he would go on to have an unbearingly long World Heavyweight Championship run where I think he was eventually defeated by Alberto Del Rio. Oh, God, it was so long. It was so boring. I'm inclined to put this run in trash, but at the very least he defended the title and he held it for quite a long time. So to me, the Big Show goes into the not good category as World's Heavyweight Champion. Next, we have John Cena, and this is just not the title for John Cena. John Cena is not the World's Heavyweight Champion. He just isn't. He's the WWE Champion. This title on him always looked foreign. It didn't look right. His reigns with this thing also were just footnotes compared to his legendary reigns as WWE Champion. That being said, he's definitely not into the trash category, but I'm not going to be singing the praises of John Cena as much as I do love John Cena. Again, every video wearing something John Cena related, but his reign as World Heavyweight Champion is just nothing to write home about, so it also goes into the not good category. Next, we have Alberto Del Rio. Alberto Del Rio, you know, you may hate this, that I just put John Cena into the not good category, but I'm putting Alberto Del Rio into the good category because he had plenty of lengthy runs with this thing and some great defenses. I mean, as much as we, of course, remember the Ziggler moment, let's not forget that there were two people in that moment, and the other person was Alberto Del Rio. Up until that moment, Alberto Del Rio was a fighting champion. He had just defended the title at WrestleMania, and then he would go on to beat Dolph Ziggler and hold the title for quite a bit longer after that as well. Alberto Del Rio was a shockingly decent World Heavyweight Champion, so he goes into the good category for me. Next, we have CM Punk. And CM Punk, to me, man, I really liked his run as World Heavyweight Champion. He goes into the good category because similar to Jeff Hardy, it was start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. And one of the times that he lost the World Heavyweight Championship, he wasn't even in the match. If you remember, he was left out at the World Heavyweight Championship Elimination Chamber match. It was bizarre. So kind of similar to Jeff Hardy, it kind of seemed like the WWE didn't really trust him as a top guy. So it was just these start, stop championship reigns. It was cool though, because he got to cash in Money in the Bank on the World Heavyweight title twice, which was cool. But again, nothing legendary or anything that we're going to sit here and talk about for, millennia to come. So CM Punk goes into the good category. Nothing crazy, nothing bad. Okay, next we have Chris Jericho. And Chris Jericho, to me, also goes into the not good category. I think people hold his time as World Heavyweight Champion a little bit too high in regard because he was playing that really sadistic character that I am the best in the world at what I do. But most of the time as that character, he was not holding the World Heavyweight Championship. So the times that he actually did have the World Heavyweight Championship weren't fantastic either. The way that one of the ways that he won, remember the Shawn Michaels attacking the Undertaker, he would go on to defeat Edge at that WrestleMania and then get cashed in on by Jack Swagger. It's pretty forgettable. And next we'll put, even though we haven't really had too much of a run with it yet, we'll put Seth Rollins into the good category so far. As of the making of this video, this is before Money in the Bank 2023. He's defended actually the title a couple of times already, with Braun Breaker and then Damian Priest. So at the very least, we have a fighting champion in 2023, even though I don't really have a lot to say about him because he just started his reign and the title just came back after a 10-year hiatus. I'll put him into the good category, but really it should be unranked at the moment. But hey, that's all of them. Get out of here.